It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays, and my desk is a mess this Wellness Wednesday. But this video is by request from my Discord server. And if anybody knows how to rotate microphones in these things, please leave a comment, because this thing's cartoid and the sweet spot is right here. And I hate having to be like here, but if I'm up here, it's not as good audio quality. So that's apropos of nothing. I'm like a raccoon trying to get a can open here. So that's not what we're talking about this Wellness Wednesday. This Wellness Wednesday, we're talking about what to do when you're feeling overwhelmed by misery, especially in the news, because it is rough right now. And this, like I said, came by request from the Discord server that has been really awesome lately. We had to do a little bit of community management, shall we say, but it's a really good group, and it's a very mixed group in terms of opinions, and people, disagree on things and less disagree, but have different perspectives on a given issue. And there's a lot of sharing, which is really nice. So if you want to be part of a group that does, we talk about frivolous things in some channels, important things in others. We keep all the politics to a hot topic channel so that if people can avoid it, if they want, on point with the video, help support this channel. If you want to join the Discord, you can become a monthly patron at patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or if you just want to kick a few bucks, the GoFundMe there as well. I'm so behind on those little housekeeping things, but that's not the topic of this video. That is just the busyness that is overwhelming in my life. Okay, so being overwhelmed with misery. There's a lot going on right now. I am monitoring a few situations where people are being openly harassed and defamed. And the thing that gets to me is how petty it all is. You see certain things and it's like, what is wrong with people? None of this is important enough to brigade somebody's YouTube channel or, complain to their employer or anything like that. There's a very high bar for me for doing that. But right now, I think people are just overwhelmed by bad, and they feel like they have to do something, and so they do something not great. And that in our brains, we have this thing where when something seems bad, we do feel a very, very compelling need to take action. It's how the brain works. Now, does this help us in complicated modern life? Often not so much. And herein lies the problem. We have our brain telling us to do one thing, in the lizard brain level, and we've got our good sense telling us, don't react, don't engage, don't. Our brain doesn't like don't. Our brain, when it's in overwhelm, when it's in panic mode, it's screaming at us to either freeze, fight, fawn, or flight. And if you're a freezer, in this case, it's good. It's not always good, but in this case, like if you freeze, you're not adding to it. But if you're any of the others, well, that can be a potential problem, because unfortunately, we live in an age where one not even badly worded, not even vaguely worded, just worded, and people just decide to take the worst possible interpretation, no matter how ridiculous, of what you said. I really want to not victim blame here, because I think there's too much of that. What I want to do is say, one, You are not required to do anything but be a decent human being to the people in your life. The big problem with global news, global news is actually a brand here. So international news is the average person really can't do very much about it. And so we end up feeling extremely powerless and just we do dumb stuff. Dumb. I'm guilty of it too. Not thought out stuff in an attempt to just feel like we're not just sitting there and taking it. And it is important to keep in mind that the way news is written, if you get your news on the internet, it's written to frighten you and enrage you, because enragement is engagement. And if you're getting your news from social media, something I don't necessarily recommend, it's even worse. What I do when I see something on social media, and I messed up, it wasn't that important. I was making a joke, but one thing I tweeted turned out to not be as depicted. And I have this run-on joke about French protesters because they do not fuck around. And so it was this thing of like steam shovels digging up a street, and it claimed that it was a road to Paris. It turned out to be a parking lot in another city that had nothing to do with Paris. Now, the farmers are protesting, and it is hardcore, but I retweeted the original thing with the community note. It wasn't there when I originally saw it, because I want people to know that I give a damn about following up with accuracy. A lot of people on social media do not. And so I tend to check to see if there's anything in news that substantiates this, because often on social media, even if the story did happen, it's spun in a way that, isn't very helpful to your understanding of the world. Now, I used to work in news, so I have a better understanding of the way things work, and so I'm less prone to believe that, they're coming to get me, than some others. But there's some really scary stuff out there. Because I work in a lot of different sectors, I'm so aware of how weird and bad the world is. And I'm almost past it into the realm of, I've been doing this for 25 years, and it's always been like this. The sun does come up tomorrow, and that's really all you can do other than not consume news. And people don't like that because people feel like they should be informed. More on that in a bit. I do have an answer to that will be reassuring. It is helpful. This isn't all going to be unhelpful platitudes, okay? But, not looking for a little bit is okay. In fact, it might be preferable. But people feel this need to constantly stay on top of things so that they can defend themselves from attackers on social media. And one of the compelling reasons I started the Discord, even though it's a lot of work, is to give people a space that they can go. And if they just want to look at cat memes, or they just want to, reach out regarding their mental health, or talk about something more personal, or talk about the latest movie or something like that, they can avoid these contentious subjects if they want to, because everybody setting their own boundaries in that regard is incredibly important. Now, and the reason we gatekeep with the verifiable identities through a credit card or vouching for someone personally is so that we know that if somebody says something that is a real person who likely just made a mistake, they know someone there. And that doesn't mean that people haven't sometimes, not worked out, but it's a person. And I think that's very important. It isn't some paid political pundit. It isn't a bot. It isn't a troll. It's a human. And not that trolls aren't humans. They're just not there in good faith. But here's the thing I want you to understand if you're feeling like I have to be informed. Breaking news is often wrong. As somebody, my career in hard news was cut short because I would rather be slow and right than first and wrong. And in the digital age, that is the wrong call. Websites make money by publishing stuff on single sources. They're getting better at that, mostly because they have to be, because people threaten to sue. But I have seen sources. I have seen more and more articles with multiple sources. However, multiple sources doesn't necessarily mean accurate, because you may have been following the whole indie tabletop RPG community harassment scandal that's affected a few people I know are really good people. It's very hard when you see people presented as horrible who are good and don't want to harm anybody and are going through some pretty serious real life crap right now. But there's all these sources and all these testimonies and all this stuff, and it's all an echo chamber. More doesn't necessarily mean better. Are the sources diverse enough that it's not all people, pulling from the same well? But because so much breaking news does turn out to be wrong, if you really want to be informed on an issue, it's much better to read a history book or, something, a research paper or something like that has had the benefit of a little bit of time to step back and get a more bird's eye view, involving analysis from people who actually know what they're doing, instead of just the ones who were available that day with half an hour before you had to go to print, before deadline, or publish on a website. Print doesn't drive things anymore the same way. One of the things we were talking about on the Discord recently was the situation in Somalia, a civil war that's been going on since the late 80s, early 90s. And a lot of people were like, I had no idea. Exactly. Hundreds of thousands of people have been killed in this conflict, and most people don't know about it. I only became aware of it because when I was in high school, in the early and mid 90s, there was an immigrant wave from Somalia. And, so we knew there was bad stuff going on because these families were refugees. Really nice people. And that's the nice thing about living in a very multicultural area like, Southern Ontario. Even out in the boonies where I am, there's a ton of halal and Indian food at the supermarket, and it's awesome. But it's so good. And halal, it's getting harder and harder to find kosher food, so halal is an all right substitute. I know some Orthodox friends of mine would disagree, but hey, beggars can't be choosers. But that's the thing. Having a group who you do trust, who you can talk to, and it isn't the open season, it isn't the Hunger Games of the internet, that's a much better way if you want to stay informed. And it's always better when it is a mixed group. When, we tend to swing where the Discord's very trans friendly. So obviously that's more left leaning, but there are some people who identify as American Republicans. There are some Canadian conservatives. European politics is an entirely different thing, but most people are somewhere on the center of the spectrum, but some people lean more left, some people lean more right, but there's a lot of libertarians and, people who, anarcho-capitalists and things like that, which once you get into the anarcho element of things, I start going, I don't understand, so I'm just going to take you issue by issue and hopefully we can understand each other. But that is a better way to stay informed and get resources about things than social media that has absolutely zero boundaries, or a news site that, unless you're able to read 5 or 6 different sources on the regular, you are going to get some sort of bias no matter where you read. And even then, even the best reporting evolves. People are wrong. The purpose of news this way is not to find out exactly what's going on in the early days. It's to get officials on the record. Netanyahu's statements right now are important, and tracking what he's saying in both Hebrew and English is important to keep him accountable for what he said. And if he's telling people one thing in Hebrew and one thing in English, that matters. That happens in Canada all the time. The bilingual politicians, they're all supposed to be bilingual, but they're not. But bilingual politicians say one thing in French and one thing in English. And it's important to keep a record of that. So over the long term, analysts can go, okay, he wasn't really telling the truth here. And, Netanyahu's long-term record going all the way back to the Oslo Accords and before is significant here. And that's why I say, if you really want to understand what's going on in the news right now, don't read the news. Read a history book. Read, long-term analysis by experts in the region, not the usual suspect pundits on Fox News, CNN, or MSNBC. That is honestly, first of all, you feel like you have a better handle on it. You're going to be more accurately informed. You're going to get a sense of the whole picture, and you're not going to be as subjected to the heat of the rhetoric in the moment. I mean, certain games, certain Call of Duty games do an all right job about geopolitics. Assassin's Creed does a really good job, even though it's fictional. Like, all these things are fictional. But, if you want to get a sense long term, it's better to understand the history of a region and an issue than the headlines. And it feels a heck of a lot less immediate. The thing I'll leave you with is this. If you are having to study to hang out with your friends the way you'd study for a test with all the stress that comes with that, are these people really your friends? Or are they people who only come together because of a common enemy? And I ask you to ask yourself this, because if it's just the whole common enemy thing. The enemies cycle. And this is why I stay out of activist circles, because there has to be a villain of the week, and eventually that villain's going to be you, because they're going to run into other villains. And it's much better to find a group of friends that respect you as a person and share common core values with different interests so that everyone can learn from each other, everyone can share, everyone can grow, and you having the right opinion on every subject and having to know everything about a subject is not something that's keeping you up at night. It's totally fair and healthy to say, I don't want to talk about politics right now, and have people respect that. That's probably the best thing to do. And that's why we offer a place to do it, because otherwise I'd be going. The thing I used to get in mental health all the time was, you have to do this, you have to do that. And I'm like, how? Well, yeah. I like to provide solutions. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, and join our Discord, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can't afford it, is working through some of this stuff, coffee.com/Leanna K, or if you just want to kick us a few bucks on our GoFundMe, all these things are available. The Patreon and Coffee get you the Discord link so you can come chat with us. Thanks for watching, and be well.